Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to another Modern Forager story. I'm Trent Blizzard, and I'm here with Kristen Blizzard. Say hi, Kristen.
Hey everyone.
And we're here with Dave Tytler. Say hi, Dave.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here.
Okay. Sorry, I had to shut the door. Kristen's over in the other room, so there was a little bit of feedback there. For the next hour or so, we're going to hang out here with Dave and talk about medicinal mushrooms. We're super excited about it. It's a topic that's very close to our hearts. We love to collect mushrooms and eat them and really treat them as medicine in our lives as well. Before we get rolling, let me just make sure we're going to be broadcasting this onto Facebook. So just kind of a heads up for anybody that is going to be over on Facebook. I'm waiting for it to go. I think it'll start in a minute. We'll be watching the chat questions there and we'll feed them to Dave as they come. The other thing, just to kind of go through a little administrative stuff, you have a chat. I see the participants on here. This is a great time. If you would like to chat out, say hi, tell us where you're from, practice using your chat. We're going to watch that and try to answer your questions as they come in. All right, and we got Peter raised his hand. Unfortunately, raising your hand doesn't do much, Peter, other than say you raised your hand. It's going to be best if you can pop things in the chat. We got Beth coming in, awesome. Says our sound quality is nice. We got Gwen from San Diego. All right. So you guys get the chat drill. You know what's going on there. Now we also have a Q&A section. Feel free just to post your questions in chat. You can feed them into the Q&A where we can see them, but not everybody else can see them if you're a little bit shy.
Hi, Diana. Hi, Nate.
We got Oregon, Georgia, Oregon. Great. People from all over. That's kind of fun how these Zooms come in from all over. I still want to wait about a minute before we really get rolling here, Dave. Let everybody come in. So I'm trying to think what else we should be maybe talking about in the next minute, housekeeping wise. I think we're good there. It looks like we got the chats coming in.
Hi, Michael.
Beth says books. You can tell everyone what we've been doing all day.
Yeah, show them. Do you have one there?
Yeah.
Trent and Kristen have a great new book that I am looking forward to getting in the mail when it comes in the next week or so?
You might get it, yeah, Monday?
Monday?
I'm going to guess they hit you on Monday. Yeah, we finally got our books, people. Wow, so exciting.
I'm particularly looking forward to the recipes because, you know, we all go out and collect mushrooms and we get a whole heap of them and then we don't know how to cook them. So now we're going to know how to cook them.
There's hopefully some fun ones in there for everybody. And we got, I think, our first 100 out the door today to the post office, and we'll send out another batch tomorrow. Pretty darn exciting. It's a culmination of a lot of work. It doesn't seem like we'd ever see this day, but they literally came today, like on pallets, like a bunch of books. So I've got cuts all over my finger from packing.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Right. I think we're good to go here. So we should start this up. I got a couple of questions coming in. Lynn says, thanks. She's from Minnesota for doing the topic, and she just ordered the book. Yay, Lynn, we'll get yours out hopefully tomorrow, if not the next day. We got a list to work through. I guess we should start this out kind of what we're talking about is medicinal mushrooms. And Dave is a long-time practitioner of Chinese medicine here in Carbondale and acupuncture. And I think we better grill you with a couple of tough questions here, Dave. And, you know, tell us, like, how did you get started in this? Tell us how long you've been doing it and how you got started.
Well, I've been doing Chinese medicine, acupuncture and herbal medicine for about 25 years. I went to school in Denver. I kind of got into it because I had gotten other types of kind of holistic medicine, massage, chiropractic, and the such, and it was quite successful for me. And I was kind of at a time in my life, I was in my late 20s, Saturn return, if that means anything to anybody out there, kind of a time of change. And I decided I wanted to make a change in my life. And so I kind of on the spur of the moment, went for an interview at the Chinese medicine school down in Denver. And the guy said I would be a good candidate, but we just started a class last week, so you'd have to wait till next semester. And I asked him, well, could I start the semester that just started this week? And he said I could. So I asked him to give me the weekend to think about it. I thought about it, and I reported to class on Monday. So that was kind of how I started in Chinese medicine.
What year was this? Or don't you hate that question?
Mid 80s, like around 83.
Okay.
No, 93, 93,
Okay.
93.
All right. And then you've been practicing since then?
Since then, it was a 3-year college. And so starting in 1995, I practiced 2 years in Boulder. And then I moved up here to Carbondale, and I've been here since 1997. First 7 years I practiced in Basalt, and then I've been at my downtown Carbondale location, Carbondale Acupuncture Center, since 2004.
So talk a little bit about what you do when you say you practice, or when I say you practice. I know you do acupuncture.
Well, I mean, basically I'm a doctor to help cure what ails people. So people will come in with any sort of problems, respiratory problems, back pain, headaches, and I will do a intake, do a workup on their kind of constitution and come up with a diagnosis, what's wrong with this person. And then the modalities that I use, as opposed to a pill or medicine or prescription medicine, would be acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, and whatever other advice through diet, exercise, or lifestyle that I think might be helpful.
Okay.
A session usually lasts an hour or so. In general, I think, if nothing else, now, acupuncture is always pretty much relaxing. And then in addition to that, it's quite, can be quite effective for any number of conditions.
And you're also an avid forager. I know we've seen you at the Telluride Mushroom Festival, even though you only live 10 minutes from here. Talk a little bit about how that, what you like to forage and how that fits into your practice.
Well, I grew up in Crested Butte, and in Crested Butte, there were a lot of what we call old timers. They were the people who came to the mountains of Colorado to work in the mines. And most of them were like from Italy, Serbia, Croatia. There was a Croatian hall actually in Crested Butte. And they kind of not brought their tradition. There are great traditions in these European countries for mushrooming, and they got to Colorado and Crested Butte, and lo and behold, right behind town was this great chanterelle area. And so the old timers, I think it was, who kind of brought the love of mushrooming to the hippies, if you will. And so from an early age, I kind of started learning about mushrooms and kind of got hooked in my teens and 20s on foraging and just collecting mushrooms and then getting to eat them. As it relates to my practice, because I like mushrooms and because I kind of specialize in respiratory conditions and immune response, kind of starting to use medicinal mushrooms, not necessarily ones I pick, but ones I can purchase, was kind of a natural step, a natural progression.
Okay. Sorry, I got distracted there. We just got a note that it doesn't look like our Facebook feed is going to work today. We'll post this up to Facebook tomorrow morning, though, for everybody to see. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's going to go live right now based on that. We'll see. And I guess that's part of kind of how it fits in with foraging and medicine. You forage mushrooms and you eat them and see medicinal value in them. You also forage other plants.
Yeah, I mean, as an herbalist, it's always fun if I can collect some medicine from the forest or find medicine. For instance, this summer I collected a bunch of arnica. I was out backpacking and there was a nice field of arnica. It was actually in one of the old avalanche slides from 2 years ago because arnica likes disturbed territory. So I picked a bunch of arnica, put it in some oil, and now I'm going to combine it with some CBD and some beeswax and make a salve out of it.
Let me show that off for everybody here. You have a picture. There you go.
So this is arnica and fireweed growing in the basalt mountain burn from 2 years ago. And the arnica there was everywhere. And you could just have picked it all day long. So I have found that arnica seems to like disturbed areas, as does fireweed. I always thought it was called fireweed because of the color, but I think it's probably also called fireweed because it's one of the first plants to come back in a fire.
Oh, well, we have this mythology, I don't know, whatever it is, wisdom around fireweed that as it keeps blooming, when it gets to the top and it runs out of places to bloom on the top of the flower, that means summer's over.
Huh. Yeah.
So we watch those and you're like, oh, there's hardly any, you get left in by about the end of August or early September, there's no more fresh blooms at the top. And
then I read about, when I was reading some books, some people were using fireweed to cook with amanitas to kind of somehow mitigate the toxicity or enhance the toxicity. I don't exactly remember. Someone will have to Google that, I guess, if they want to find out more. But they were talking about using fireweed cooked with some mushrooms. I think it was amanita for some specific purpose, but I don't recommend running out and doing that.
Let's go down the let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit and talk about arnica and CBD, and maybe Kristen can grab our bottle there. I think it's up with all the dishes there for the photos. We also collect it and make an oil out of it. We've been using almond oil. We're thinking to make like a oil to rub into your skin. Can you talk a little bit about your process of making medicine from the arnica?
Yeah, I think any of the oils really can work quite well. Almond oil, olive oil, avocado oil. But really the arnica the good parts of the arnica are oil soluble. So really you just got to pack arnica into a jar, fill it with oil, and I make it like sun tea. I just put it out in the sun for a few weeks and shake it every day. And then press it after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, however long you really want. I don't think you can really go too long. I like to press it because a lot of oil gets kind of absorbed in the plant, so you can kind of press it out. You can use a potato ricer or whatever press you have. And then that's your oil to use. And so you basically have to use beeswax to thicken it up to make a salve. You heat up the oil and then eventually the beeswax will melt. And then you can add in other essential oils if you like. You can add in CBD if you like. You could add in some curcumin or turmeric essential oils or frankincense and myrrh. The one I'm making, I'm just keeping it simple. I'm just trying for CBD and arnica as just the 2 ingredients.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, can you talk about just quickly what parts of the arnica flower that you use, and if you dry it the whole way, or do you just because I've heard a lot of different things, and I ended up using really just the petals and the seeds or the fuzz almost, and the tiny green part that attaches to the flower, and that was it.
Yeah, that's what I've been using, and I think that's what's best to use. I think I have read that sometimes it's good to use the bud just as it's opening, as opposed to the full flower. But I think either one is just fine. But yeah, you just kind of pop the little flower heads off.
Right, but you dry them before you put them in the oil, right?
I
'Cause
don't. I just put them in fresh.
Oh, really? Because I tried that and I had almost like it just got a bit funky in the oil a little bit. Do you think there's a difference if drying versus doing the fresh?
I just think fresh is better because it's fresh, but there's nothing wrong with using dry.
Yeah,
But I think
mine got a bit funky for some reason, like funny smelling. I don't know.
I have not noticed that.
You haven't had that. Okay.
I haven't had
Interesting.
that.
Here's
And
here's
then,
the dried arnica. I don't know if you all can see this at all. Kind of dark in here.
I do think one thing we need to say when we're talking about arnica, just to be clear, it's only for external use. Nobody should
Ingest.
take it internally or even put it on an open wound because it's toxic internally. So it's just to be used topically,
Yeah, good point.
to be clear. But it's good for muscle aches and pains, joint aches, inflammation, and especially new injuries.
It's awesome. And it's super prevalent around here, I've found, like you said.
Yeah, you can
I saw it
definitely
in the
find a lot.
burn too. But
But if it's not very prevalent, I never pick it if it's just a flower or two here or there because
yeah,
you don't want to over harvest or anything. So I only pick it if there's a big field of it and just pick a small portion of it.
yeah. I've
That's what
found
I
quite a
think
lot
is
around
important.
us.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thank you. I'm going to
We've
tune
got
in.
that jar. We've got the jar. So you held up the one that had the, that was packed in the oil there. You have to talk so they can see it though. You're muted.
I'm muted? Kristen's muted.
Kristen, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Here's the jar packed in oil in case anyone wants to see this. Like Trent said, we just used almond oil for this.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
right now, our house smells crazy delightful. We grew a hemp plant and we're decarboxylating it at this very moment so that we can take the arnica oil, and I think we're going to run that through the hemp to try to make a CBD arnica combo. Is that how you do it? Do you extract the hemp or the CBD using the arnica oil?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I just buy CBD oil
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
add it in.
We've always done that too. We're for the first time this year, we're like making our own.
Cool.
And boy, the whole house smells like
Let me know how that goes.
I'll bring you over a little sample.
Sounds good.
We should have some tomorrow. Now we got a few questions getting asked and answered in there. Somebody did recommend if you're using fresh arnica to do a heated oil infusion like the crock pot on low for 3 to 4 hours, and this way there's no funkiness.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, we haven't really started on our topic yet either, and we're already diving deep. I think just seeing if there's any other questions about this before we move on. Maybe we can now kind of segue into medicinal mushrooms, and maybe you could talk a little bit, start like big picture about health and healthy living with mushrooms. I know you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about, I think mushrooms medicinally are kind of known for two things. They're known for immune system enhancement, and they're known as it relates to cancer and the treatment of cancer. So I want to talk about immune system first and how the mushrooms help the immune system. And then I think that will kind of set the table for talking about mushroom use and cancer. Let's just talk about, first let's talk generally about the immune system. The immune system, no, let's talk about the mushrooms first. So the mushrooms can stimulate the immune system to it's like a catalyst for the immune system. Like mushrooms can jumpstart the immune system. And there's kind of two constituents in the mushrooms that seem to do this: polysaccharides and triterpenes. And I think the polysaccharides get the most press and the most are most talked about. And I think that is, I think that it deserves that, because these polysaccharides stimulate T cells, B cells, killer cell, NK killer cells, and such in the body to have the immune system on alert and ready to go. It's like a call into the fire station to be ready to head out. And so in these mushrooms are these polysaccharide compounds. And anytime you cook a mushroom, whether it's a boletus or a button mushroom or maitake or whatever shiitakes, when you cook them in water and heat them up, this kind of nice sweet juice comes out that makes it taste good, at least the ones you eat. And that sweet juice is these polysaccharide sugar chains that are in the mushrooms. And it's these polysaccharides that stimulate immune function. And so among the many reasons one should cook mushrooms as opposed to eat them raw, from a medicinal purpose, the reason you want to cook mushrooms is because mushrooms have this substance in it called chitin. Is that pronounced correctly? Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so, yeah.
It's a hard kind of, it's like the shell of a crab has chitin in it. And that's this hard shell inside the mushroom, this hard kind of layer inside the mushroom is what makes a shaggy mane mushroom be able to bust through hard pan road or concrete even. It's this super hard kind of cellular cover. But hot water will break down that cell wall and then release these polysaccharide sugars. So if you want medicinal value from mushrooms, you must cook them in water because it's water soluble. So you cook these mushrooms, whatever mushrooms you have, or you buy an herbal remedy, which presumably from the store, they presumably did a water extraction. And then you use these mushrooms to stimulate and jumpstart the immune system.
Okay. I was surprised about the cooking in water part. What does that look like for those of us that, you know, fry our mushrooms up in a fat?
Then steam them in water after you've done that. Put a little water in the pan, and then, or steam them first and release all that stuff. That's probably the better way for flavor. Then throw in your butter and oil. But you got to do a quick hot steam if you want the medicinal value, because the polysaccharides are only water soluble. They're not fat soluble and they're not alcohol soluble. So even putting some wine in there is not going to pull out the polysaccharides. However, terpenes are alcohol soluble. So then if you throw in some cooking wine in there, you'll pull out the triterpenes, which are also immune builders and have other health benefits. So then you could get the full medicinal spectrum and still have it taste good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate way. Instead of taking these pills and tinctures, is have a big dose of mushrooms in your food for dinner.
I agree. And if you think about mushrooms you can buy in a store, I think shiitakes are at the top of that list as far as medicinal values. If you compare it to button mushrooms, portobellos, which are really kind of the same species, or any of the other mushrooms. Though at some specialty stores, and I think even at Natural Grocer in Glenwood Springs, you can buy maitake in kind of a small box. And maitake is another mushroom that's perhaps has the highest polysaccharide content actually of any of the mushrooms, definitely of the tasty mushrooms.
Yeah. Now, and this relates, Peter asked a question on the Q&A there, is he's been picking and eating meadow mushrooms every day for over 2 months, and he believes they strengthen his immune system. What do What do you think? Do you concur?
Yeah, I would concur. You know, I mean, I think a meadow mushroom probably isn't as high in polysaccharides as shiitakes, but if he's eating them every day, I'm sure he's getting a nice polysaccharide uptake, and probably also some other vitamin and minerals that we don't even know. Yeah, keep eating them as long as you're not getting sick, and it sounds like you're not.
And we are going to talk about double decoctions and mushrooms here in a minute. I think we're going to come back to some techniques for making tinctures.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about immune system first, because this is what I want to talk about for folks. And this is something I think, I have the analogy of a moat around a castle as it relates to the immune system. So taking immune building herbs is like building a moat around your body castle. So in times of wellness, when you're not sick, you want to dig that moat wider and deeper. So that's things like taking medicinal mushrooms, eating fruits and vegetables, getting exercise, practicing stress reduction. All these things will help dig your moat wider and deeper, make your immune system stronger.
Things like drinking water and sleeping too, right?
Sleeping's in there, yeah. So then you get sick. So the Vikings come down from the north and attack the castle and start shooting spears and stuff. So when you're sick, when you're under attack, do you go out, Trent, and dig the moat wider and deeper? No.
No.
You would be easily attacked and shot if you were out there with your shovel. You fight back when you're getting attacked by virus and bacteria. So you fight back with antiviral herbs, antibacterial herbs, echinacea, you know, any sort of golden seal or any sort of Chinese herbs like yin chow that are going to fight the bacteria and be antiviral and antibacterial. So you don't take more medicinal mushrooms when you're sick, because that's not fighting the pathogen. When you're sick, you want to fight the pathogen with different substances. And then when you're better and it's time of peace once more, then you start back in on medicinal mushrooms and other things to build your immune system. So it's kind of a common misconception to take mushrooms or immune tonics while you're sick. You want to take it when you're well, to strengthen your body, to make the moat more indefensible or unpenetrable.
And that's a pretty big distinction, you know, when you're kind of thinking about how I'm going to include mushrooms in my life is, oh, I'm getting a cold, I better double down on my tinctures is the wrong way to go. I might want
to double down on your other tinctures or your other herbs. Maybe you picked a bunch of echinacea and golden seal or osha or something like that. Or you go to your Chinese doctor like myself or Nate who's watching, and then you get some herbs from us, and then you get a nice herbal prescription to fight off whatever pathogen you have. Then you go back to your immune building mushrooms, yeah. And slow and steady wins the race for building immune system. You're not going to just take medicinal mushrooms for a week or two and say, oh, I got a strong immune system. We're talking months and years to really strengthen an immune system. So it's a long-term process of eating good food, taking supplements, and taking care of yourself to strengthen the immune system. It's not a 1 or 2 week project.
Okay. We got a couple comments on that. I think Suanne is saying, in other words, use mushrooms to protect, but other means to heal. So that sounds like what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's a way to put it, yes.
Okay. There were several questions we missed. If we back up just a second, it seems like some people are concerned about how long should they steam their mushrooms? Do you use the water as well as the mushrooms? What's a quick steam?
Good questions. Definitely use the water. because that water is going to have all these polysaccharides in it, and it's going to taste good. So definitely use the water. Like if you're making a stir fry, definitely use that. Medicinal mushrooms I'll cook on the stove for hours, so you can't overcook it, but at least 5 or 10 minutes to at least break open those cell walls and get the good stuff to release.
Is that what's happening?
You can't overcook them probably, but you could probably overcook it from a culinary point of view. But not
is that
from a
what's happening
medicinal point of view.
with like chanterelles and porcinis? We get a bunch of fresh ones, they're moist, we put them in the pan and they just release a lot of liquid right away.
My assumption is though that's polysaccharide rich liquids, but I have no proof, but that's what I assume. Because it has a nice sweet taste.
It does.
And it's polysaccharides are sugar change, so my assumption is that they're polysaccharides, yeah.
Okay. Sorry to back it up. There were a few questions coming in.
No, that's
on that.
good.
Another one, Peter's pointing out just while they're there about allergies. He's concerned about people can have terrible allergies, perhaps to shiitakes. I myself, for instance, I'm totally allergic to morels. So it is true that some people can be allergic to some mushrooms, just like they can be allergic to other things that occur in nature or in the store.
Well, this is probably true, and there's going to really be no way to know except for if you have the unfortunate experience of eating one. Hopefully it's just an allergic reaction and not a gut reaction from a misidentification. But I mean, I guess if you're allergic to one mushroom, you're not necessarily allergic to others, but it's just going to have to be trial and error, I think.
Yeah, morels make me throw up pretty bad.
That's very sad.
I have a lot. If you need some morels, Dave, I got some extras.
Okay, yeah, bring them on. Bring them on.
Kristen's scowling though. She doesn't want me to share our morels.
That's right. I got my jars downstairs. As you well know, Trent, we were up on the mountain last year.
Yeah, for everyone else, we did some bird morel hunting last year together and shared intelligence, and we had a pretty exceptional year last year.
Hey, show them my big picture, Trent. This is the time.
Yeah, that's a big one. Let me show that off here. So there was that's in the fire right there. That's this year in the fire, year 2. But you caught this big guy. Must have been last like July or August, right?
That was at the end of July last year. It was up on top of Basalt Mountain. What Larry Evans calls the white elephants when they grow really big like that.
Yeah, and they taste delicious too. They're nice.
They do taste unlike some mushrooms, they taste just as good big as small, at least to my palate.
I think you're right. Especially these morels are they have a lot of flesh, so they're very solid in your mouth. They're delightful.
You can stuff them, you can fry them, you can saute them.
Okay.
All right, that's enough showing off, Trent.
Yeah, it is. That's okay. I'll stop that there. Beth chimed in interestingly. She says she's allergic to chanterelles.
That's sad too. I'm sorry, Beth.
I don't know if you had to pick one to be allergic to. Morels, chanterelles, or shiitake.
It'd be much better to be allergic to russulas or something like that.
Right. I'm allergic to amanitas. Sorry.
Yeah, right. I can't eat those.
All right. So I think we're doing good on the. And Peter's asking. Yeah, Peter, I definitely cook them just fine. It's not a cooking problem. I have developed an allergy, and other people eat them, and I eat half a dozen. I feel bad. I eat 12. I throw up. Even little ones. So
Beth says she can eat morels, so you guys could each cook for one another.
I love cooking them for people. I totally enjoy cooking them and serving them, but I can't eat them, and I test it several times a year, thinking I can eat yellow ones.
Just in case.
So
back to the immune system. So how do you use mushrooms to boost immune function? I think there are a lot of medicinal mushrooms that are good for that. You've got maitake, cordyceps, reishi, chaga, Coriolis, and there are others. I think what's important, and a lot of sources talk about this, is to use a variety of different mushrooms, like 3 to 5 a mushroom blend for immune system tonification, as opposed to just a single mushroom. And I think it's just because the different polysaccharides and the different constituents in the different mushrooms kind of trigger different parts of the immune system to come into play. So even though maybe maitake has the most polysaccharides per capsule or whatever, I think you're still going to get a more potent remedy if you combine a few different mushrooms in one remedy.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you want to do is, you don't want to take a lot of them for a week. You want to take some of them for months and years, months to build up the immune system. So really a few capsules or a few squirts of tincture, or if you make your own, but just a little bit every day, day after day, is what's going to get you there, not just megadosing when your friend starts getting the flu, for instance.
Okay. Do you think, like you have a variety of mushrooms, we can take them as tinctures, we can eat them fresh, some we can eat dried as well. Do you have a preferred way to consume them, especially when you don't have fresh ones available every day?
No, I think tincture or capsules can work, because most capsules, I think they cook them mushrooms in water and then kind of cook it down till it's like almost a sludge, and then it can be, or even drier where it's like freeze dried.
Yeah.
And if you get a tincture, you just want to make sure it's not just an alcohol extraction. I think most tincture companies now know how to do a water extraction and an alcohol extraction, and then combine the two, because you need this water extraction to get the polysaccharides.
That's the
When I make a double extraction like that, once I add the alcohol, if you want to bring up that one picture of the polysaccharides trend,
Okay.
once you add the alcohol, the polysaccharides that have come out in the water extraction will precipitate out because they're not alcohol soluble. So you should have a layer of sludge or a layer of gunk on the bottom of a mushroom tincture. And that's how you can kind of tell if it's strong or if it's effective. So this is a remedy I made. This one's actually the one I make for cancer treatment, which I will talk about later. But you can see there's a lot of polysaccharides in there. And so I first did an alcohol extraction, put that alcohol aside. Then I boiled down the herbs in water, the mushrooms in water, and then I pressed it out and then cooked it down even more. And so then say you get that top part of, well, no, all of it is the color of the top part. Then you add in the alcohol to preserve it and get the triterpenes. And then when you add the alcohol, since those polysaccharides are not water soluble, they precipitate out. So if it's an alcohol extract, hold it up to the light and see if you can see some polysaccharides on the bottom, and then you know it's good and strong.
And you better shake that. You better shake that tincture every time you use it.
Yeah. When you take it, you want to shake it so that you distribute the polysaccharides and you don't get it all at once. But if you ever try and just get a lot of those polysaccharides and just eat it straight, it's a nice, sweet little flavor. It actually tastes pretty good usually.
Huh. Unless it's reishi.
Unless it's reishi, yeah, true.
Shake it when you take it. That sounds like a t-shirt idea.
Yeah, shake it when you take it.
Do you usually, when you make your tincture like this, do you usually do the alcohol first and the water second?
I do now. I used to do the water first and then the alcohol second, but a friend of mine, Dawn Vrabel, some of you might know her from Carbondale, she said, well, Dave, why don't you do the alcohol part first, because the terpenes don't like to be heated up. They lose their efficacy. And I thought that was a really good idea. So I have started first doing the alcohol extraction and then doing the water extraction. And what I found for the final tincture is you end up with much more alcohol extraction than water extraction. So I just do a portion of the herbs and the alcohol extraction at first, then boil them all and then combine it. And you want to get at least 20% alcohol content when it's all said and done to keep it from going bad.
Yeah.
But I try and keep it right around 25% to be sure. But I don't want too much alcohol because I think the real potent stuff's in the water extraction.
So what I heard you say, though, to back up just a minute, is you will for the water extraction, you'll use the previous leftovers from the alcohol extraction and put in a little bit of fresh new stuff in there as well.
Correct.
Huh.
Like say you have 1 pound of mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
If you soak all that 1 pound of mushrooms in alcohol, you have to use so much alcohol that you end up getting a lot. And then compared to the water you get, there's extra alcohol. So I just do some of it in the alcohol. I mean, it depends what you want. I want a really potent tincture. So I want to cook it in water and then even cook it down so that the waters really concentrate, the water extraction. And then you just don't need so much alcohol. I don't want to dilute it with too much alcohol.
Yeah.
So, because I want it as potent as possible per dropper full.
Okay, and I'm just checking out the questions here for you, Dave. They're coming in.
Okay, I think I can pull some up too.
He's asking about how important is it that the powder be an extract versus a non-extract. He takes a blend of powdered blend of 6 to 10 species. So I assume if there's 2 types of powder on the market. One is not non-extract, it's a powdered mushroom. They grind it up and pack it in a pill. Then the other one is the extract. I think that's where they do what you're talking about, water and maybe alcohol. And then they blow it out into the air somehow and dry it so that all the liquid is gone and all you're left is with the extracted medicine. That's
what you want. Yeah, you don't want just powdered reishi because it's never been cooked, or powdered anything, it's never been cooked, and it's never been water extracted. So you definitely want the one that's cooked and then, desiccated for sure.
Okay.
And I don't know. It's hard to imagine anyone just selling capsules of ground up mushrooms, but maybe people do. I don't know.
Well, somebody was asking about the companies that sell mycelium based pills, especially Host Defense. And I feel like that's a rabbit hole there.
Is it just the mycelium?
Yeah, I think so. I think Host Defense sells just the mycelium and they're not actually adding fruiting body to it, which a lot of people get.
But is it uncooked mycelium?
I don't think so, but I don't know the answer to the.
I mean, a lot of the mushroom remedies I make starts with this mycelium, and then you cook that down. Because you can't, for instance, cordyceps, you can't get fruiting bodies, at least Cordyceps sinensis. You can of the militaris, the yellow one, but like Cordyceps sinensis, you can only get the mycelium unless you want to pay $5,000 per 100 grams.
Right.
And then you could get it.
For 20 little bugs.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question too, just the whole mycelium thing. I think there's many years of science still to come on this, and my hunch is it'll be a complicated answer. Somebody asked about polysaccharides being just long sugar chains. How are sugars medicinal? And I'll let you answer that one.
Well, I mean, is carrot juice medicinal? I mean, the polysaccharides are sugar chains, but it's these, whatever the chemical is in there of a polysaccharide stimulates the immune system of the human body. So, I mean,
this is not beet sugar or corn sugar or
right.
This is not that type of sugar. This is
it's a particular type of molecule that happens to be a sugar chain, but it you know, it has an effect on the body, just like any other chemical from food or medicine has an effect on the body. So, I mean, I don't think you just think of it as sugar. It's a type of sugar that is in a mushroom that has a particular effect on the body. You can call it medicine, you can call it food, you can call it herb, whatever, you can call it whatever you want, but it will help your moat get wider and deeper.
Here's a good question. I like this one. Are there any medicinal mushroom combos that should be avoided when making teas or tinctures, i.e. mixing reishi with chaga or cordyceps?
I'm not aware of any contraindications there, though Beth shouldn't put chanterelles in and Trent shouldn't put morels in.
Right.
Here's a question. How far do you cook down the liquid? Do you go till it's sludgy or still liquid? I go till it's still liquid. Sometimes there's this little sheen of layer of kind of sticky stuff on the top. Then that's far enough. But sometimes it doesn't even go that far. But
when I do it, I struggle with, you know, I want to get that 25, 30% alcohol. And so I'm always trying to get the right, I don't want to end up with extra water to my alcohol level. But at the same time, I don't want to pour water into it because it's too alcohol heavy.
If you, here's a tip for all of you at home. If you don't have an herb press, you can add a lot of water in, cook it a long time, and then, so then when you strain off the water, the majority of the water is not in the spongy mushroom, and then cook that down. Whereas I cook it down till the water is just right level with the mushroom, and then I press it out with my herb press. But if you don't have an herb press, you're not going to get anything. So then you want a lot of water, because then when you pour it out, maybe only 10% is left in the herbs, in the mushrooms.
Okay.
And then you cook that down. But the way I've decided to how strong to make it is just trial and error of cooking it down. Then I add in the alcohol. And if I see it precipitate out, then I know I have a good and strong. If it hasn't precipitated out and I've only did that with a little of it, I'll cook it down some more. So I don't have an exact recipe, but I just kind of make sure that I make sure there's a good bit of polysaccharide precipitate.
Okay. You've mentioned this herb press a few times. I have like a cheesecloth kind of squeezer mesh thing. What's an herb press? Do you have one there?
Well, it's expensive. It's like $1,000. So you probably wouldn't have one at home, but it actually has a jack and it's quite effective. But even like a potato ricer, do you know what a potato ricer is?
Yeah.
You could use that or just squeeze it with your hand with cheesecloth. Yeah.
Okay. Someone anonymous asked about steaming mushrooms, like reishi steaming for tea. Maybe she meant steeping. I don't know.
Steaming or steeping, I think you could do that with any of these mushrooms, these medicinal edible ones. The reishi might not taste that good, but if you buy Trent's book, he's got some good recipes in there for sweetening up reishi. Yeah. Reishi tends to taste pretty bitter. It's not the first one you usually run to for a good tasting tea.
Let's be honest, reishi tastes awful.
It's a pretty distinct bitter taste for sure.
I don't enjoy it at all. That's why I have a reishi tea every night now. In the evening, I'll make one after this, and it's the recipes in the book. It's really good, and it's steeped reishi, but with like a sour apple added, and honey and cinnamon, and it's kind of like a mold, like it's really like hot cider.
As an herbalist, I'd probably throw some dates in there to sweeten it up as well, or something like that, or a little bit of licorice or something.
Okay. I think we use honey in there. I'd have to cross-reference the recipe, but I like it that way. I do a reishi tincture every morning, though. I put it in my coffee, which for me totally covers the taste, and I can enjoy it. But that's the only way it works for me.
Stephen has a question about he takes a 6 to 10 mushroom powder every day. Should he cook it or boil it? It was something like that. I would say if that powder is just the ground up mushrooms, then yes, you should heat it up with water and drink it as a tea. And I think it would have greater health benefits than just taking the powder. But if it's an extract like we were talking about where it's already been cooked, then you're good. But if it's just your own ground up mushrooms, I would say cook them up as a tea.
Okay. Anonymous is still pushing on getting more answers about fungi polysaccharides that have things that sugars do not. I think let's just move on.
Yeah, I would say let's do that for after this webinar.
Yeah.
How long do you steep reishi? I'd say you're going to want to cook reishi, not just steep it, probably.
Yeah.
Cook it for a while till it tastes nice and bad. If you haven't cooked it too long, I don't think you'll get as much out of it.
Yeah, when you make a face when you taste it, you know you're about done.
But reishi is also a good one to make sure you get alcohol extract too, because there's a huge terpene profile in reishi, and you get a lot of good health benefits from the reishi from the terpene. So let's talk about reishi for a sec, Trent. In Chinese medicine, or in China, it's kind of got the moniker of the mushroom of immortality. So that's enough to make you overcome the poor taste and just eat it day after day. But if we think about the things that reishi mushroom will do, boost the immune system, anti-cancer, but we're going to talk about cancer later,
Okay.
lower blood pressure or help cholesterol. And then in Chinese medicine, if you look it up in the Chinese medicine books, it talks about it as being a heart tonic. And I think in that way, it's kind of to elevate the spirit of a person. And it's a chi tonic, an energy tonic. So if you add all these things up, it's like, hell yeah, I'll try that. That does sound like immortality. I mean, so the point being that reishi is just a mushroom that's really good for you. And in the original Chinese medicine herbal book called the Shenlong Bencao, written about 2,000 years ago, reishi was actually listed as the #1 herb in that book because of its excellent potency, its mild nature on the body, and its lack of side effects. So you could take as much reishi as you want, probably without any side effects.
Okay.
And you would get this immune building, energizing, kind of calming effect from reishi.
Okay. Are there any other, on that same question, are there any mushrooms that you can take too much of? I'm thinking chaga, for instance, is one that I know we're not really talking about. I don't know if it's part of the Chinese medicine tradition, but I think you can overdo chaga and it can be unhealthy for you.
I'm not too up on chaga. I mean, I think most of these mushrooms that we're talking about think about maitake. It's an herb, but it's also a food. I mean, you could eat a plate of maitake and not feel ill from it.
No, you feel great.
You feel great, exactly. Hen of the woods, for those of you out east, the same thing as maitake. You could eat a whole heap of those and you're fine. So it's really going to be hard, at least most of these mushrooms we're talking about, to do too much of them. Cordyceps, you can megadose cordyceps and you're not going to have any ill effects from that.
Okay. What about turkey tail? Somebody's asking about that.
Let's talk about turkey tail. And then let's talk about turkey tail and then seg into the cancer side of the mushroom thing. You want to show that picture of the turkey tail so that people can see it? It's the one that we had on the start.
Yeah.
It goes by turkey tail, goes by Coriolis, goes by Trametes versicolor. So that's what it looks like when it's growing. It's a common mushroom, can be found kind of all over America, right, Trent?
Yeah, all over the world too, I guess, but not. It's hard to find in Colorado. It's unusual, but east and west, it's pretty common.
And so it's a Coriolis has a large polysaccharide profile. However, it's not really an edible mushroom. It's like a shelf mushroom? Like it's just a chewy, hard, cardboardy sort of thing. You got to cook it down and then use the water extraction from it as your medicine.
Yeah, you can't even get it to break down in a grinder.
I have never tried to grind it fresh. Yeah, it's just like rubbery.
Yeah.
It's like you just wouldn't want to eat it. I mean, I've never taken a bite of it, but you just wouldn't want to think about that. But so Coriolis is like kind of in there with maitake as a polysaccharide-rich mushroom. In Japan, they pull 2 polysaccharides out of Coriolis, PSK and PSP. PS is for polysaccharide, so polysaccharide crestin and polysaccharide peptide. And this is a drug, an often used drug in Japan for cancer treatment. So you can also use Coriolis for immune building and such. It's I'd say one of the heavy hitter medicinals. But let's talk about cancer for a minute. So you've got this polysaccharide from the Coriolis mushroom that's used for cancer treatment. Why are they using it for cancer treatment? Everyone raise their hand if they have an answer. I don't see anybody raising their hand, Trent.
My hand's down.
Okay. Why do they use this? It's a rhetorical question for me, myself, and my own camera. They're using this mushroom as an adjuvant treatment in cancer therapy to boost the recipient's immune response so that it's called a host-mediated response, so that the person taking it has a stronger immune response to the cancer. They're not taking the Coriolis or the crestin to kill cancer cells. They are using chemotherapy and radiation to kill cancer cells. And they are adding in this mushroom to boost the immune response and boost the body, which has been beat down by chemotherapy and radiation, so that the body is stronger and more resilient to fight whatever cancer cells are still drifting around outside that were not irradiated or nuked by the chemotherapy. So when you use mushrooms, so you got to be careful when talking about using mushrooms for cancer, because it's not killing the cancer. Like, it's not cytotoxic. It's not like a chemotherapy. The mushrooms are strengthening the host-mediated immune response in the individual to better fight the cancer. So it's best used in combination with other treatments and therapies. I wouldn't just boil up some Coriolis and some maitake and some reishi if you have cancer and expect it to cure you.
Do you think
Myself,
that,
as a practitioner, I have to be very careful in how I word it. And it's like I'm using the mushrooms in combination with other medicinals to boost the immune system to help fight cancer.
can that build a moat against cancer as well? Is that
Yes,
a good strategy?
exactly. It's not going to guarantee you won't get cancer, but it will make the moat wider and deeper so the pathogenic factors have a harder time getting hold. Exactly. That's exactly what it's well used for, is as a preventative and a strengthening herbal, if you will.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see if we got, somebody was asking about, back to the polysaccharides, about the water temperature, boiling it. It did come up with chaga earlier. I just want to point out, I think that the temperature guidelines for chaga are not about polysaccharides. I think they're about different active ingredients. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know a lot about it.
And Trent, someone just wrote, great, how about turkey tail?
That was when I asked you about turkey tail.
Yeah, so turkey tail is the same as Coriolis, or it's all this, it's just different names for the same mushroom.
Yeah, they did that right before we got into it. But what about the temperature? Do you have a temperature recommendation for the tinctures and the teas?
But just whatever boiling temperature. Yeah. I mean, do you need to boil the water for the polysaccharides to release? I don't know the answer to that. They say hot water is what everyone always says. So I think maybe if you just boiled the water and put it in, that might be enough to release the polysaccharides. But lukewarm probably isn't enough.
Yeah.
Hotter than lukewarm.
A new device in our kitchen that's kind of fun. It's called a magic butter machine.
Uh-huh.
And, you put in solids and you put in liquids. So it could be, it could be butter, but it could be oil, could be water, could be alcohol. And then you put in the solids, like it could be any sort of solid, any herb, or in this case, mushrooms. And it's fun because when you put it together and run it, you can select your temperature, like 130, 160, whatever, 180, and how many hours you want to do it. And it steeps your product in the liquid, and it's got a little motor in it. So like every 5 minutes it kicks on and goes, and it like motors through the solids. And it seems like it's a really nice kitchen appliance to make your tinctures, where you can kind of set the temperature and the time and come back 4 hours later.
Sounds good to me.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, Jessica had a question about adaptogenic mushrooms and how they build up and benefit the system over time. My understanding of adaptogens are something that you kind of use during periods of stress, like you take an airplane to Europe and the time zone change, or you have to stay up all night studying and you need that energy boost, or you go to high altitude and your body is not adjusted. So the way I think about adaptogens is they're used for these periods of change or stress on the body. And so it's not really over time, but a quick use. So in my opinion, that would be a time you would do, unlike the immune building, a high dose of the mushrooms or the adaptogen over a short period of time to get that boost when you need it, when you're sleep deprived, when you've crossed time zones, when you're climbing Mount Everest, or you're coming to ski in Aspen from a lower elevation. She wrote, I've heard this about reishi. The mushroom that I know most about being adaptogenic would be cordyceps. I think that's probably the strongest adaptogenic mushroom. It's for that reason that these, you hear of athletes megadosing cordyceps to improve their results.
Do you recommend a cordyceps tincture? Is that going to get those qualities out of the mushroom, or do we want to?
Cordyceps also has a lot of the triterpenes. So I think it could be alcohol or alcohol water combo, or any sort of, I think pretty much, I think cordyceps, cordyceps is not built on the polysaccharide, so it doesn't have to just be a water decoction. So I think there could be any number of ways to get a good dose of cordyceps. Someone wrote lion's mane for brain function, question mark.
Good question.
Yes, just yes, how about that? It's good for that. Yeah. And it tastes good, right, Trent?
Yeah, it tastes great. I've got a really nice pom-pom in my fridge right now that I grew accidentally this week. I have I grow mushrooms, and I had an old lion's mane block sitting in the garage, and I went out and looked at it, and there's a softball-sized lion's mane on it. So
yeah, I recommend so lion's mane for brain function. Yes, I'm sure it has other good qualities too, and it tastes good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one that is interesting. I think the science that it seems like one of the rare mushrooms here that have some clinical trials that show brain function for what is it, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease improving when people consume it. However, I think when they stop consuming it, the advantages go away.
Stephen wrote a question. He has a turkey tail that he's about to pick from his yard. For the liquid in the machine, what should I use? Combination of water and alcohol, or either one individually? I would just use water, because the power of the turkey tail comes from the polysaccharides that are water soluble. So I would just use water. I'd make it as concentrated as possible, and then either drink it up in the next week or so, or then add in, then maybe put it in some alcohol and use some of that alcohol to preserve it. But I would primarily use water for that.
How long, when you soak your those two steps, the alcohol and the water, can you go back and talk about, do you let it sit in the alcohol for weeks?
You could, since I mostly am interested in the water. If I do the alcohol, I usually do only 3 or 4 days in the alcohol, because I feel like that gets most of it out for the mushrooms, and I'm really more interested in the water.
Okay.
If you cook it first, you definitely want to only do a day or two, because you don't want to leave the water in the fridge too long, or it'll start going bad. But if you do the alcohol first, you could do longer if you want, but I think 3 or 4 days is even enough to get most of the good stuff out, and then cook them and then combine the two.
Yeah, I've noticed mine get a lot of their flavor happens when you taste them in the first couple days, and even though I run it longer, I don't always feel like my flavors change much, which kind of goes to what you're saying. Can you see Alexandra's question there about the dosage recommendations? I think that's a great question, because you got all these tinctures like, oh, I just take a squirt or two. How do you do dosage?
Assuming that's a tincture, I made a double decoction of turkey tail. So assuming it's a tincture, Alexandra, it really depends how concentrated you made it. Because if it's like a gallon of water and then a liter of alcohol, so if you have a gallon at the end from 1 pound of turkey tail, that's not very strong. So you might drink 4 ounces in a day. But if it's just a matter of, if you boil it down to 16 ounces and then put a little bit of alcohol in that to preserve it, then that's pretty strong. So then maybe it's like a teaspoon or a few droppers or something. You can't really do too much of it. I personally will look at the polysaccharide content. If you got a good layer of polysaccharides in there, 3 or 4 dropperfuls twice a day might be a good solid medicinal dose to take over time. I take a squirt or two, please don't kick me out. I think that's fine. It's pretty concentrated. Yeah, 3 or 4 squirts once or twice a day sounds good. How's that, Alexandra?
That sounds like a good answer to me.
Okay. Let's see. Does it affect the potency if the turkey tail is fresh or dried for a year? Dried for a year will work, but fresh is always better. But if it's dried and kept well, it'll still be good and effective.
So when you make your tinctures, you're often using a fresh mushroom whenever you can, is that?
Well, whenever I can, but honestly, more likely than not, it's not fresh. But like one year, the turkey tail came up in my garden, so I cooked it fresh. Like I just made a batch of astragalus, which is a Chinese herb that's actually another good immune herb. I actually kind of call it an honorary mushroom because it has a very high polysaccharide content. So I personally use the herb astragalus in with my mushroom blends for the same reason you use a variety of mushrooms. I use another polysaccharide-rich plant, in this case, astragalus root, to broaden the polysaccharide spectrum. And I just picked some astragalus that I've been growing for 4 years, and I just tinctured and double cooked it right up fresh, because fresh is better.
That's a lot of work, 4 years.
It was a lot of work. I did not start a new 4-year batch. I got about 1.5 pounds from about 6 plants, but it was fun.
Good. And thank you for sharing that. I'm a recipient of one of your one of your bottles of astragalus, and I've started taking that too with my coffee. I like to put those tinctures in my coffee, and part of it is I don't drink alcohol, and I really like to try to get the alcohol as much out of it when I consume it as I can. And I feel like really hot coffee. I think.
How about tea? How about tea, Trent? We're talking health here. How about tea?
Did you say something?
Did I say something? No, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
Okay. You thought you heard something, but you didn't really.
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah, no. Should we talk about a few other mushrooms specifically? How about cordyceps?
Yeah.
Cordyceps grows in the Himalayas, basically. And it's not even exactly a mushroom. It's kind of, no, it is a mushroom, but it's a parasitic mushroom. It's a fungus that takes over the body of a caterpillar. And the mycelium grows in the body of the caterpillar, and then it shoots up this tiny little mushroom in the summer. And it's a very potent medicinal mushroom. It's probably over scavenged throughout China and Tibet because it's worth its weight in gold, basically. Fortunately, it can be grown in the lab as mycelium, and it still has a lot of its good function. And cordyceps is, like I mentioned earlier, is a good adaptogen. It's a good immune tonic. And in Chinese medicine, it's said to work in the lung, on the lungs and the kidneys. And in Chinese medicine, the lungs and the kidneys have this kind of reciprocal relationship where the kidney energy roots the lung energy. So for someone who has a problem where the lung energy is rebelling with a cough or with asthma, or in the case of cordyceps, it's usually a long, drawn out, dry cough, the ability to anchor the lungs with a kidney tonic, as well as an herb that will help the lungs, will help asthma and dry coughs of long standing. It was traditionally used for tuberculosis, a cough from tuberculosis. So, and then it's an immune builder as well. So cordyceps is a good herb for the lungs and immune system. And then as it relates to the kidneys in Chinese medicine, it's also good for, this is some cordyceps, not the Chinese variety, but one called Cordyceps militaris that you grew, Trent?
Uh-huh.
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure that's good potent medicine right there. And they're pretty.
Beautiful mushroom.
It is. Nice. You gave me one of those. I hope mine grows like that.
Yeah, me too.
So cordyceps is good for, and then from the kidney point of view, in Chinese medicine, the kidneys is about waning energy as one ages. So cordyceps will help build up kidney strength. So if you think about the kidneys as it relates to old age, so someone suffering from just old age debility, taking a daily dose of cordyceps can be helpful. And for all you old guys out there, it's also been talked about for virility and for impotence. But I caution you, it's not like just taking a Viagra or something. It's something you take over time to strengthen your virility.
You have a moat metaphor for immunity. Do you have a metaphor for that one?
I'll work on it.
Okay.
I don't. Sorry.
It's all right. Any other specific mushrooms in there worth?
Yeah. We talked about cordyceps. We talked about reishi. We talked about turkey tail. How about maitake?
Yeah.
Let's talk about maitake. Hen of the woods. For you mushroom collectors, it's a pretty common herb in the Northeast, in Oregon, right? The Northwest. Is that correct, Trent?
The maitake? We get the maitake in the Midwest more.
In the Midwest.
Yeah, and
it grows on trees. You get a lot of it when you find it, but it tastes really good.
Oh yeah.
But maitake mushroom, or hen of the woods in America, maitake has a very strong polysaccharide profile. It's got this one famous polysaccharide, beta-glucan D fraction, something or other, that has been shown to be quite effective in this host-mediated response for fighting cancer, particularly breast cancer. So maitake, as the main mushroom in a mushroom blend for someone with breast cancer, would be a really good thing to take to help the rest of the therapies make a coordinated immune response and to fight against the cancer. So maitake tastes good, it's good for your immune system, and it's good for boosting the immune system as it relates to cancer.
Yeah, it's a delightful mushroom. It is so good.
So really, those were the main ones we wanted to talk about. Let's just talk about the mushrooms you can forage for a minute, like boletus and chanterelles and oyster mushrooms. You know, a lot of these, you don't have all the research done on these mushrooms as far as, oh, they're so good for this, so good for that. But like we talked about earlier, they all have these polysaccharides, and they're all going to have these health benefits that come from sprouting out of the forest right at when they're most prime, when they're most ripe, when conditions are perfect for this food source to emerge. So if you think about eating a wide variety of vegetables of all different colors so that you get a good nutrition profile, adding wild mushrooms to this is like a bonus. It's like icing on the cake for getting these great nutritious hunks of food from Mother Nature. And it's always going to be fresh when you're out foraging because it's coming at the exact time, the only time of year that this mushroom, this food can present. So I think really, you know, these wild mushrooms haven't been studied, but you can bet that they're good for you and have health benefits.
Okay.
Someone just wrote beta-glucan, also known as D fraction, I took for my breast cancer. That's maitake, right?
Yeah, somebody
Out of
else
the woods.
a maitake picture. Here's one growing at the base of an oak tree. In Pennsylvania was where this picture was taken, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
There was another question, I don't know the answer to this one, asking about red-belted conch, which I think is Pinicola. Trying to think what the name of that is.
I don't know about that.
I don't either. Gosh, I'm trying to think what it's called. It's not a Ganoderma, it's a Pinicola. It's I guess a local conch. Since we don't have reishi, they have the red-belted conch.
If it's one of the Ganoderma species, you could probably think about it as along the same lines as a reishi, presuming it's edible and safe to eat, since I don't know that much.
Similar. Honestly, we've tried it and kind of had some belly ache issues with a.
Okay, let's not formally recommend that. Hey, here's a question. Do popular culinary mushrooms have the beneficial polysaccharides that the medicinal mushrooms have, like Boletus edulis? Let's just say yes to that because you want to feel good about eating Boletus or porcinis. But I think, you know, Georgia and Billy Ray, you know, when you cook a Boletus, it just, all that sweet liquid comes out. I think that is polysaccharide rich liquid. That's what I think, but I don't have anything to prove it, but that's what I think.
I think boletus are super healthy. Like if you were on a desert island and needed to survive, porcini, they have so much protein in them. They're a really high protein mushroom. I think it's a fabulous one. Now, somebody's asking about Stamets on Joe Rogan, saying why he's adamant he won't eat portobello's. I haven't heard that. And I don't know if you know the answer, but it triggers another question is, I hear store-bought maitake versus wild maitake. You know, are forage mushrooms healthier for you? And I've grown maitake pretty unsuccessfully, and you just grow them on oak sawdust. But what do you think about that?
Well, what do you think's better, a mushroom you just picked off the tree, or one that comes in styrofoam and plastic has been wrapped and shipped? Like these essential, the chi a Chinese medicine term, the qi, the energy of this food it's not gonna be as good packaged and shipped as fresh. So fresh is better, but you can't always get fresh. You know, if you can't grow your own carrot, you go to the store and buy a carrot.
But
Can't grow
maybe
your own tomato, you buy a tomato, but you know, garden
So maybe
tomato
the
is better.
maybe the distinction is not wild versus or foraged versus cultivated. Maybe it's fresh versus shipped.
I think so, but like, think about it. I'd still rather have one that comes up from the forest floor than the sawdust in my basement, right? It's got to have more nutrition coming from the forest floor than sawdust infiltrated, mycelium infiltrated in sawdust. So I'm going to go with the forest. That's my final answer, Trent.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Someone wrote, I just got a maitake yesterday. It weighed 6.5 pounds. Yummy mushroom and good medicine. I bet she did not overdose, although she may have been full. Yeah.
I will. Yeah. The cute little maitakes. We don't know in natural groceries how far they come from, but they do smell different than a foraged maitake. Somebody asked about chaga, 20 pounds of chaga cut into chunks in the freezer. Lynn asked that. When we harvest chaga, Lynn, we dehydrate it, we dry it for sure. We break it into small chunks first because it's really hard to break up after it's dried. And then we pack it in the Food Saver plastic bags and suck the air out of it for longer term storage. But I think that's the way most people store their chaga is dehydrated.
Thanks. You're the chaga expert here.
Is chaga, is it in the Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine?
No. I haven't come across it. Even Coriolis, it's called yunjir in Chinese, but it's really in none of the main herbal books. I don't know why, actually, but it's not.
I think the chaga wisdom seems to come more from like Eastern Europe and Siberia, places like that where they consume a lot of chaga as a tea substitute. And we're like, oh, there's all these people that don't get cancer in this area, and they all drink chaga tea.
Yeah, there you go. Peter wrote me earlier if I knew his son Rob in Crested Butte. I don't know Rob. Sorry. I think we've hit a lot of the questions.
And we've got through our whole topic. We even got through the other mushrooms we wanted to discuss. We talked about arnica.
You did?
I think we did pretty good. We can maybe pat ourselves on the back and
yeah. Should we take a few more questions if anyone has them?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Somebody asked if we can do a webinar where you two show us what you grow in your outdoor garden and or lab. That would be fun. It's probably the wrong time of year. Dave you have an awesome garden. You have a greenhouse with your garden is fabulous.
I grow mostly vegetables. On the herbal side, I have a goji berry plant that's about 5 years old. This is the first year it's produced berries. They're little tiny red ones and they don't taste that good, actually. They have that kind of acrid flavor, but the bigger ones tasted better. So I'm hoping in a few years, they'll get bigger berries and then taste better. I had the astragalus, which it's my second batch I've grown. They're supposed to be in the ground 4 years, so I dug some up this year. This 4-year batch came up better than the last 4-year batch. I was happy with that. But I have a lot of fresh vegetables. I have tomatoes in the greenhouse and basil and cucumbers. And so really, those foods, here's something we can talk about. What's the difference between food and an herb? What makes something food and what makes something an herb? And I think in this case, the main difference is food tastes good and herb doesn't taste good. If you know, there are a lot of these herbs that if they tasted good, they would be food and not herb. And so lots of times, so a tomato tastes great, but it's also good for you. If a tomato tasted crappy, it'd probably be an herb. So any good fresh food you're growing in your garden, it's food, but it's good for you. It's like an herb. And then what's the difference between an herb and medicine? You know, you can blur the line. When is Coriolis an herb and when is Coriolis a medicine? Is it just a medicine when you extract this polysaccharide and then give it to someone who has cancer? Or is it an herb when you boil it in your little crock pot, but not medicine yet? So, you know, if you kind of think about this spectrum of food to herb to medicine, it's really a matter of potency and a matter of side effects, right? Because medicine is going to have more side effects. Food, by nature of it being called food, shouldn't have side effects, really.
Oh,
But if you're trying to heal yourself, you want to think about food, which you can use every day. If you can use food to heal yourself, that's the best. If you're desperate, then you go to medicine. So, Trent is pulling up the little graphic that I worked so hard on today. This is a graphic representation of what I was just talking about. So you would like to use food as your medicine if possible. So in this case, wild mushrooms or shiitake or maitake. If you're so sick that food doesn't work, you shift to the right toward herbs or farther right toward medicine. But medicine is for short-term use. You just want to use medicine, get better, and then go back to food and herbs that have less side effects to maintain your health. And something like shiitake and maitake are really good because they're both food and medicine.
Awesome. I think we did it there.
All right, I'm good. I'm glad we got all these questions. That was awesome. Comments?
Georgia and Bill Ray want to know where I got my cute hat from. It's Trent. That's okay though. I get Brent a lot. Kristen made that for me for Father's Day.
Nice.
And, I love it. So it's a one of a kind. I'm the only one that has one. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for doing this with us today.
That was awesome.
It was.
This is my pleasure. This is what I like talking about.
It was. I feel really fortunate that you came on and really shared your wisdom with us today. And we will post this up on YouTube and Facebook in the next 24 hours for everybody. So if anybody didn't get to see it, it'll be up there forever. So,
awesome. And may it rain next summer.
Oh my gosh, man, it rained like this week.
May it rain.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Good night.
All right. Thanks, everybody.